Hey guys, welcome back to Intuitive Angling, and man, appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and hanging with me a little bit. Always grateful for that. And as you can see from the title here, guys, hell has officially frozen over. I have caught my first bass using the cheater box. There's a lot more to the story I'm going to explain to you guys in today's video here, but this is going to be a very interesting one for everybody to tune into. I think you guys are really going to like this. Also, guys, for get started, just a couple of our daily quick housekeeping tips. Appreciate you guys being patient with them. It's what keeps the channel on YouTube. Quick invitation, guys, to swing by Tackle Warehouse. Check out my Blaukat Throwback jig link. Guys, these are the jigs that are made for me by Cumberland Pro Lures. Living rubber, hand-tied skirts, super labor intensive. We've been working on this thing for years. Got the perfect head design to come through rock and wood cover both. Perfect fibers, perfect diameter and number of fibers. It's got an awesome keeper inside to keep your trailer up here. But guys, living rubber is the superior jig skirt over silicone. You don't see them because they're very labor intensive. I'll have my Tackle Warehouse link in the description if you guys would like to order some using my link. We got 7 different colors, 3 different sizes on these. And also, guys, real quick, in correlation with the jig or any slow bait, guys, I have been using this bait pop scent lately. This has got amino acids in it. It's got real fish scent. It stays on the bait for like 30 minutes, guys. It's got fish formula in it. This has been my favorite fish scent over the past year or so. So I'll have the bait pop link in the description of the video. You guys can put on any of your slow baits, worms, creature baits, jigs, or whatever. So appreciate you guys putting up with the plugs there. Okay, guys, as you can see from this thumbnail, I have caught my first cheater box bass. Let me tell you the story here. Matt Pangrach, who runs Bass Talk Live, who is probably arguably the top bass fishing podcast in the country right now. There's a couple good ones out there, but I think, Bass Talk Live is right at the top of the list. And, I've known Matt for years, and he's been very critical of my stance on forward-facing sonar and has made that known. So anyway, he called me up last week, and he had ran an idea by me. He wanted to do a video and do some podcast work about going out on the water with me and talking about live scope forward facing sonar, give his opinion on it, use it, fish traditionally, just get out on the water together and discuss this fact that I'm just this big divisive figure, or I've created chaos in the industry by my stance on forward facing sonar. And basically the fact that I've been sort of leading the charge against the technology. So anyway, I took him up on it. I said, yeah, sure, we can get out there. I'll fish with anybody, guys. It's like one of the things that I've always known in fishing. It's like, you can demonize people, and you can call people names, and you can have opinions of people that you don't know, which most people that, cuss me out and send me all these dirty comments on my Facebook comments don't know me. But most of the time when you get 2 people in the boat together and you both love to fish, everything else melts away, and you just enjoy that common thread of catching bass. And Matt and I had a really good time together. We went down to Table Rock Lake, and it was a really good experience. He's going to be doing several different segments on our trip together on Bass Talk Live. I think I'm probably going to come on there and talk about it a little bit, but that'll be coming up pretty quick here. So I just wanted to set the stage for that. So I did catch my first bass on the cheater box, and I'm going to explain to you guys what happened here and sort of a little bit about, what I thought about this and the feelings and my experience. First of all, for all you sensitive types out there that are offended or disgusted or somehow just, get your panties in the wad that I call it the cheater box, just settle down a little bit, because I call it the cheater box because the forward-facing sonar and that advanced technology is not fair chase. The people that use it are not cheaters, so get it through your skulls. I'm not calling anybody cheater that uses it. I call it the cheater box because that unit is not fair chase by any means or any metric whatsoever. It's not. So I want to clarify that, when I call it the cheater box. So here's what happened. Let me preface this a little bit. Excuse me. It's April down at Table Rock Lake right now, but the thing about Table Rock is there's a lot of bass that live offshore all year there. And people catch bass, live scoping, even during the middle of the spawn. I mean, like yesterday, there's bass on the beds, a lot of bass on the beds, and there's still a lot of bass that are just cruising out in the open water in the lake. So it offers a really good environment, to utilize this particular technology. So what happened is we got out there and we sort of let the day fold a little bit. And Matt was explaining to me about forward-facing sonar, and I had been around it a couple different times because my buddy Johnny Schultz, he took me out, in forward-facing sonar. First started coming on the scene pretty hard about, 4 years ago. Johnny and I went out on the lake together. Johnny's probably I would rate Johnny Schultz as the #1 electronics angler in the country. And he showed me forward-facing sonar. I just watched. I didn't fish or anything like that. So I knew, somewhat about the workings. But anyway, we get out there, and Matt and I are talking and fishing this type of stuff. And he goes, well, get up there, man. Get on that, live scope and see what you think about it. So he explained to me the basic, the thing that I was, the learning curve I had on this. I know how to read electronics and all this, but he explained to me a little bit about the cone angle and the boat positioning and, the sensitivity and turning and exactly what I was looking for in terms of blobs on the screen, that type of stuff. So he gave me this little seminar, and then I sort of took over myself. Now, here's some of my takeaways with it, and then I'm going to get into my opinions on this whole trip here. First of all, one of the things, if you have not used forward-facing sonar, and this is the first chance I've had to use it, for any extensive time, it'll sort of mentally exhaust you a little bit because you are so focused on that screen. One of the first things that I noticed about it when I started looking for these fish on forward-facing sonar, the first thing I noticed about it is how you are completely disconnected from everything else around you. Because if you're going to stay on that little group, that little wolf pack of fish or an individual fish, your transducer position has to be precise with that. And it's like you cannot take your eye off the screen for a split second. So the first thing that came to my mind was about how there's nothing existing for me in this space except looking at that screen. So immediately, I was uncomfortable with that. I didn't like the fact that I had to be laser focused on that screen, the entire time. And Matt was explaining to me, and another thing about Matt sort of he always sort of makes fun of himself that he's not that good of a live scoper, but he's very knowledgeable. And he explained everything in detail very well. So he was a very good, teacher with that. But anyway, he was explaining to me, we were running over little groups of fish. He was explaining to me the difference between bass and other type of species, and really explaining to me about how the unit works in terms of the casting angles and the depth distance versus the forward distance and how all that stuff correlates together. So I take off down the creek. I'm scoping, I'm looking out in the middle of the creek here, and I'm seeing some 1s and 2s like that, and I'm throwing at them. I'm really getting my cast down where I can see the bait falling down through the fish, and I'm scoping on the outside of this dock, and I see a school of fish over there. So, and this is the biggest school that I've seen since I've been on the trolling motor looking for them. So and he set me up. He put me a jig head minnow on and everything. Of course, I was using straight fluorocarbon. I wasn't using the braid to fluorocarbon like he was. So I threw the jig head minnow over there, watched it go down to that school, watched it fall down there. And then as it was falling, watched one of the little dots come over there, eat the thing. At the same time, I felt the strike and set the hook, and it's that fish you saw on the thumbnail there. So got my first forward-facing sonar fish probably about 15 minutes into using forward-facing sonar. So here's my thoughts on it. Here's my opinion on it after that. It makes this from what I saw yesterday, it makes me even more against it. It's like, my position after getting out there with an open mind, and I did have an open mind. I was appreciative of Matt taking me out there. And Matt, like I said, he was great to fish with, and we had a great time together. We fished live scope and traditional stuff together both. But my takeaway, because I was really going into this open mind, I knew I wasn't going to change my mind because I know too much about it. And I know the bigger picture of what I'm talking about here. It doesn't have anything to do with the technology catching fish. But my takeaway from using forward-facing sonar myself and catching bass using forward-facing sonar, I hate it more than I've ever hated it now. And I'll explain to you why that is. First of all, I've always known that those fish are out there. It's like, Matt and I even talked about, I was explaining to him how, I remember guys trolling for bass in the middle of those creeks out there 50 years ago. And I've seen tons of fish come up and bust out over 80, 90 foot of water. I've always known those fish are out there. I mean, always. I've caught a lot of fish just blind casting jerk baits out there. But given that the fact that, after I already knew that and I could actually see it on the screen to what I was talking about, again, the first thing that it did, it's like it took away that unknown. It took away that mystery and magic. That's what you hear me talking about that all the time. So when I was out there scoping in that creek, and even when I found that school of bass that were out off the end of that boat dock, it's like it didn't do anything for me. It's because I didn't want to know. And it's like one of the things Matt had a hard time with. When we were traditional fishing, he goes, "How can you fish not knowing what's there?" It's like we'd pull up to a point or something. It's like he goes, "I have no idea what's down there. I can't just fish this." And I was telling us that's the point. You don't want to know. It's like there could be anything there. It's like that's the wonderment and the magic and the unknown of fishing is we don't know what's there. It's like I can tell you, it's like we're on a secondary point leading into a spawning flat. I can guarantee you there's bass there. I don't know how deep they are. I'm not sure what the lure category they want, but I can promise you there's bass swimming down there, probably looking at your bait about every other cast. I've always known that. So this whole thing about the day fishing with Matt, with the forward-facing sonar, I'm really glad I did that. And a lot of people were like, "Randy, you hypocrite! I can't believe you actually use forward-facing sonar." I'm not that big of a prude, guys, that I can't go out there and use that and to try to educate myself more on it. Because even though I knew that I wouldn't change my mind, because it goes way beyond what that unit actually does. And like I was telling Matt, I said, this is incredible technology. I'm not saying that it's not. This is an unbelievable development, but it only needs to be in the hands of the fisheries managers and the conservation departments. It doesn't belong in the hands of recreational sport fishing anglers whatsoever. I still believe that more than ever. And what this experience is, number one, I can appreciate the skill set that it takes to be a master at forward-facing sonar. Because, like I said, I caught my first forward-facing sonar bass about 15 minutes into using forward-facing sonar with Matt coaching me on it. But I can understand when you're talking about the top level, as far as the nuances of using this technology, that it requires a tremendous amount of time on the water to do that. But given that doesn't make it an art form in bass fishing, because it's not. It is not an art form of bass fishing like traditional bass fishing techniques, because again, you are completely reliant upon that technology to utilize those skills. Now, yeah, once the skill set behind forward-facing sonar, from my impressions with it and my use of it, was number one, the correlation, the mind-body correlation between your boat positioning and your trolling motor positioning and the distance the fish is out there, the wind speed, the wind direction, the depth of the fish, and then reading the fish on the unit. Reading the fish on the unit, as far as catching those fish, is the easiest part of it, in my opinion. The hardest part of it is making the cast, making that cast in the right position to generate that strike, and all the details surrounding that. But it's not rocket science, is what I'm saying. This does not have anything to do with the true primal art form of bass fishing. And I can say that because I've caught my first bass on forward-facing sonar. The true aspect of bass fishing is that aspect of fishing to find the fish, because that is the baseline of anything. It's like, out of all the fishing conversations and fishing, every aspect about bass fishing, the very premise that you build upon is you fish to find the fish, and then you build upon that. You don't turn on a unit that finds the fish for you. That's messed up. I mean, that's effed up. And that's what forward-facing sonar does. It is an umbilical cord. Nobody can say that it's not, because those bass that were on the edge of that boat dock, Yeah, I probably would have cast there regardless if I didn't have forward-facing sonar, but I wouldn't know exactly how deep those fish were or how they were positioned and how far off the dock that they were. If I had not had that piece of technology, I wouldn't have known. Therefore, that catching that fish that you see in the thumbnail, I caught that fish with the umbilical cord of the cheater box. That's just the reality of the situation. So given my experience with Matt, time we had on the water, it just makes me more adamant about the fact that we have got to ban this technology from fishing. Because one of the conversations I had with Matt was that I posed this question. I said, Matt, I said, at what point? I said, we all know the advancements are coming. We all know this AI integration's coming. There's going to be, the resolutions are going to get cleaner. It's going to get more user friendly. I said, do you have a point? At what point is it too much or is it not too much? It's like, at what point in this advancement of technology is it going to be too much? And he even said that, yeah, he had a point. He wasn't sure what it was, but he had a point that it's too much. It's like we've crossed the line where it's not fishing anymore. And this is fundamentally the difference. And I explained to Matt, it's like, I explained, it crossed the precipice for me in 2006 because I guys told you a story in a video recently. I was one of the very first anglers that had side imaging. I got it in 2006. Aaron Martins and we were sponsored by Humminbird. We were two of the first anglers that had side imaging technology, and I used it when I first got it. But I came to the realization, and I quit using it because I even told Aaron, I said, Aaron, this is not fishing. I said, this doesn't feel right. I don't like it. I don't like what it does to the sport. I think it degrades the sport. So my preface was side imaging technology. Some other people may be a more AI advanced technology, but eventually, guys, everybody has a point of which, or if you have any type of critical thinking skills, or if you have any type of awareness, or if you have any type of concern for sustainability, I think everybody has got some point where it's just too much. And I think we've reached that at this point. I am more focused and determined now to try to do everything that I can to undermine this technology in the sport, to try to ban it, to try to make it illegal, to try to educate people of the degradation this is causing to our sport, and to help people get back to the preciousness and the beauty of real bass fishing, the art form of bass fishing where you fish to find the fish and you don't use an umbilical cord to success there. So anyway, guys, like I said, I had a great time with Matt. You know, Matt and I, it was fun. I really enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the opportunity. Just tried to stay open-minded about everything. But tune in, man. He'll be hearing Bass Talk Live. We'll be having a bunch of stuff. They're going to show all the stuff we fished together. I think you guys are really enjoying it. So appreciate you tuning in.